Thank you, Helen, and thank you, the Cardo team and the Columbia for having us here. I'm really excited to share with you a little bit about what I've been working on. So my name's Kristin. I think we share a similar mission. I want to help people make better decisions off of maps or spatial data. I have a background in product management and finance, and I'm currently a data scientist at Nationwide, where we predict the damages from natural disasters, and those inform our pricing algorithms and our risk management strategies. I'm here to talk to you about a little bit of a personal use case, and to that I need to know, it's October, it's spooky season, do we have any scary movie lovers in the crowd? Yeah, a few scary movie lovers. Okay, so have we ever heard of the movie The Children of the Corn by Stephen King? Okay, we have heard of it, cool. So that was actually filmed in my hometown. And my siblings and I auditioned for it. We didn't get it, but I think we should have. I don't know, you tell me. So this is me on the farm in Iowa, and I grew up on a farm, and I was surrounded by corn. And my family still owns and operates this 800-acre farm. So do we know what an acre is? Some people do. Okay, it's about the size of a football field if you take off the end zones. And 800 acres is about the size of Central Park. So imagine that all covered in corn. I grew up around a lot of corn, and we were a small farm. So you can imagine my shock and my surprise when I moved to New York City, and I go to brunch, and nobody's talking about the price of corn or how much rain they got. And this is a common occurrence among two farmers. When two farmers would get together in my hometown, they're always talking about how much rain they got, how green is your corn? Is it tasseling like this photo of my dad in July? Very proud of our corn and its growth throughout the season. So we need to know, farmers need to know what their yield is gonna be, and that's measured in bushels per acre. So it's measuring how much corn you're gonna get. And this helps influence the decisions around, am I gonna store my corn or am I going to sell it at the end of the year? And it's very influenced by the price, which is informed by traders. And traders and markets are influenced by many different things. Climate, I'm not gonna stand up here and pretend I know all the things behind the corn market, but I do know it affects our daily decisions being made. And they're getting reports monthly on the prediction of what the yield is gonna be that year. So it's an average yield per acre, and it's once a month. And the way they're formulating these is usually from the USDA, which is the United States Department of Agriculture. They give predictions, and they send people out to look at how green the fields are, and they even do old-fashioned measurements like this kernel of corn here. I got props. They'll count how many rows, and they have this calculation of how much that yield will be. So it's a lot of human interaction into the data, and it's very slow and untimely, and it's not super accurate, especially at the beginning of the season. So farmers and markets rely on weak and inaccurate data to predict, and also untimely to predict these things. So I started asking myself, can we use satellite data to predict this better, to increase our predictions? Can we use carbon data? That's where I want to talk about solar-induced fluorescence. So you may be familiar with some of the other things to monitor the health of plants, like vegetation indexes. Vegetation index measure the amount of greenness and how healthy the plant is. Solar-induced fluorescence is different, and I'll tell you why. And you can imagine yourself, like, let's say I just got out of the gym, I just did a good workout, and I want to know how hard I worked at the gym. I can take a picture of myself, I can look in the mirror, and I see I'm sweaty, maybe my muscles are plump. This is a picture of me working out. But a better measurement of how I worked out at the gym is what my heart rate was during my workout. And that's what solar-induced fluorescence is instead of vegetation indexes. It's the heart rate monitor for plants. And it's really neat. NASA actually measures this with their orbiting carbon observatory. And when a plant takes in the sun and the water from the soil and it's converting it to energy, it actually, after it converts it, it starts to reflect some of that back as a red glow. And this red glow can be measured. It's not, you can't see it with the human eye, but it can be measured from satellites at NASA. So this is what it looks like during the growing season for corn. So if you think about corn, it's planted in the spring, it's harvested in the fall, and it's in the Midwest. So I said Iowa, I'm from Iowa. It's right in the middle of the Midwest. And you see in June and July, you see that red glow really pick up in the Midwest. And what's really interesting is if we look at the yields from that same year at a national scale, you see a lot of similarities. There's very fertile soil in the Midwest, and we're producing a very high yield. So I did a quick univariate analysis from the map. It looks like it's pretty predictive, right? But let's dig it deeper. This is actually pretty weak data. It's at the county, my actual variable is at the county level. My predictive variable is at 25 kilometers squared, so it's not a super intense satellite. It's at 25 kilometers squared versus like this is my home county of Lyon County. It's a 5,000 kilometers squared, so it's pretty big data and not very strong when it comes to geography. And why does that make a difference? Well, this is actually my family's farm in Iowa. If you look at the gray areas, that's where we grow corn. And if I put a 25 kilometer block over it, I'm not super accurate to the field. And I'm getting a lot of noise. I'm getting rivers, I'm getting other crops, I'm getting soybean. It's not super accurate. So I'm gonna introduce a third variable, and this variable is the variable that is gonna make my weak data strong. And it's at the 30 meters squared. So the USDA captures where crops are grown each year. And if you grow up on a farm, you know that not everyone is, every field is corn every year. So I validated this with my family's data. Here's a geotiff mask of what the corn is for that area. And you can see it outlines the field quite well at a very granular level. So now let's combine all this data together. Thank you for laughing. Yeah, so for those of you who grew up in the city, this machine is a combine. It's what uses to help us harvest. So we're gonna bring all these data sets together. First I have my geodata frame, and this is Python code, very simple geodata frame, nothing too complex here. Then I'm gonna add my solar-induced fluorescent layer. So there's a little red glow, you can see the variation throughout the county itself. And this is in a net CDF, so it's an image. Then I have corn. I told you, there's a lot of corn in Iowa. This is all the corn for that year, and I can mask it for soybeans or anything else. So this is corn. It's a geotiff, 30 meters squared. And what I'm gonna do is bring all of these together. So I wanna mask this image on top of another image. So I'm rastering and I'm clipping to the size of my geodata frame. So we have a bunch of spatial data scientists in the room. This is pretty incredible. I just took one data point and made 30,000 data points. And now I'm gonna take it and do it for the entire US. But before I do that, I wanna take a moment to acknowledge the team that helped me do this. Oh, sorry, so I got my CIF value for one county, and I need to get, in order to get to yields per acre, bushels per acre, I need to times it by a factor. And there's a paper written on this of what type of factor it is, and it depends what time of the year that you get this information. So July is the most predictive. So before I get into my results, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the team that helped me do this. You'll see a lot of them share the same last name as me. My dad, Delmer Scholten, my mom, Paula Scholten, and my brother, Kyle Scholten, all helped me form the problem statement and validate some of the data. And then we have Dr. Oz Kira. He wrote the research paper on this work. And we have Sina Kashik and Planino Guzman from Fused. Incredible data engineering. They really did the magic to make my vision come to life. So this is what it looks like comparing to the county level to if I take out just the corn, what I care about. So you see very red on one side, and I'm only using 400 data points. It's a county level. On the other side, I've now created 21 million pixels that I can analyze and see, and it just increases the amount of statistical power that I have. And you'll see the SIF values, it's usually from 0 to 1. They're really not that far off. But when it comes to predictions, it does make a difference at the national level when we start to scale this information. So when I got my prediction for this particular year versus the actual yields, it was 173 bushels per acre versus 175 actual for this year. And you can see from the pictures, it's quite similar where there's high SIF for the corn-specific areas and the high for other areas. Now, you're saying, Chris, this really isn't that big a deal. It's only a couple bushels an acre. But again, if you put this at scale, it makes a big difference. The size of this industry, the amount of corn options being traded is over $22 billion. And that year that I did my predictions on, there's 94 million acres. So when you put all of this together, if the USDA at that year made an estimate of 168 in July, and my estimate said 173. And that 5 bushels of acre difference is the result of $2.5 billion in the industry. So it makes a big difference to be able to get this information on time, nevertheless to say I can give it at the county level and not just the national or state level. So really makes a big difference, and really want to emphasize timely and accurate corn yield predictions, increase profits, they reduce waste, enhance food security and stability, and really wanting to become a more climate resilient world. I think this work is really important in understanding not only in the US here, but also in other countries. We can apply some of the same principles using this similar satellite data. So I want to thank you for having me. This is my LinkedIn. Feel free to connect after. And then my GitHub, all the code you saw today, you can run it yourself if you use this QR code. And also wanted to just shout out our farmers for growing the food that we eat. And it's harvest time, so give thanks for the harvest. Thank you.